Welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Tonight again we are learning Le'ilu Nishmat Miriam Bat Bracha. We are continuing with, I think this is lecture number 4 on Mashiach, if I'm not mistaken. So like we did the other 3, you don't need to have those previous knowledge to know to continue, but obviously it would help you a lot. So the way that I am going to organize the whole series on Mashiach is going to be a standalone share, even though it's going to be a series. You'll get a lot more if you get all the information from the previous classes, but if not, you'll still be able to understand the bulk of what we're going to be speaking about throughout also the entire series of Mashiach. Okay, so tonight we're going to B'ezrat Hashem speak about Islam. Islam, ISIS, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, you know, all of our friends in the Middle East that really, really love us so much that they just want to send us to heaven already because it's so good up there. But you know, we have to understand what is Islam's purpose in the end of days. What do we have to learn from Islam, you know, in the end of days, and how does all this come into play in the bigger picture of Mashiach and the end of times? There is also, you know, let's just get into it. So if you look into history, if anybody's a history buff and they look into history, generally the majority of prosecution that was by the Jews were usually done by the Christians. They were the ones who prosecuted us very heavily. I mean, the Muslims, they did their fair share. Don't get me wrong, but it was very heavily done by the Christians. Now it's very interesting how the end of days the tables have turned a little bit. All of a sudden the Christians become our best friends, and well, outside, and the Muslims are going and terrorizing. And if you guys come from the Middle Eastern countries, you realize that it was very peaceful until recently to live in the Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, you know, Iraq, you had Iran, you had wherever it is, it was okay. Even Jordan, you have places that there's the Kibbutz Sadiqim in Jordan that nowadays people can't go to it. Egypt. So it's very interesting to see how the tables have turned. There was a global research, and this was done by 2015. So I'm sure this was changed, since then, due to the Islamic change in the world. But it said in 2015 that the reason the state of Israel was founded, was that the Jews can live in security in a place and not get prosecuted. But ironically, how now, well, back in 2015, the most dangerous place for a Jew to live in the entire world is in Israel. How they created it to run away from anti-Semitism and run away from prosecution, the most dangerous place is Israel in itself. So you look at it, you look how unlikely it is for us to survive in a land of Israel. It makes absolutely no sense. Besides the fact, and this is a very bad picture that I'm going to show you guys, this, the lighter, this is the ocean. The darker red, this is over here. This is all lands owned by and run by Muslim countries, and you can't even see Israel. Israel is this tiny little stretch of land, and you look. So the white is not Islamic based, even though Russia is I think it's like 15% of the population is Muslim. So which we'll get to it. I have it later. So and you have Germany is turning Muslim. So you see all over here. This is all going to turn red very, very soon. But you look at the amount of land, just the land aspect of ratio, from what Israel has to what the surrounding Islamic nations have. I think that they have 12,000 more times land than Israel does. So that's how much. And it's funny because none of these nations are taking any refugees. Well, the majority of them are not. Where are they going to? Germany. They're going to Europe. They're going all the things. They definitely have plenty of land and plenty of space, but they don't want them, and we'll soon see why. So that is. So the entire surrounding area of Israel is surrounded by people that want to destroy us. The entire Israel is surrounded by people, is within them, people that just want to go and destroy Israel. You have, 2 million Muslims, Israeli Muslims, Israeli Arabs, I don't know the terminology that they use for it, there's a very high number that are in Israel, and they just want to eradicate us from within. So we have people that are trying to kill us from without, trying to kill us from within, and it's a miracle that we're even surviving, let alone that we're surviving strong. So this just comes to show you how everything is orchestrated from God. Because if you start thinking it from a logical perspective, it makes absolutely no sense we're still around. Not to give any of them any ideas, but the amount of Muslims that there are in the world, they could just start walking into Israel. They just walk in, and they'll cover the place like grasshoppers and ants. They'll overrun it. So it really makes no sense why we're surviving. The only reason why we're surviving is obviously because that's what God wants it. So this was already, there was a very famous commentator on Tanakh. His name was the Malbim. He lived about 150 years ago, and he specialized in these interpretations of. He had commentaries on all of the Tanakh. Very, very fascinating. Very, very brilliant man. 150 years ago, he already understood from the Psukim in Tanakh that Israel is going to have its own state. And you think about it, 150 years ago, what we had nothing to do with Israel. It was run by an Islamic whatever. It wasn't really run. It was nobody really there. It was just swamps and nothing. But he was able to prove from the Tanakh that Israel is going to come to become a state. And not only that, he went even further. It's 150 years ago. He said that it's going to be by two different groups. One group is following the Torah, and another group not following the Torah. 150 years ago, this was already came into existence. So this is what he said. And he goes and he explains like this. The Malbim explains that the redemption is going to come in 3 stages. Number 1, there's going to be a gathering of exiles. Everyone's going to start gathering into the mainland, which is Israel. And then there's going to be a small government set up, which was what we have right now. And finally, the third step, which we'll have an eternal kingdom, the kingdom of Mashiach. So we see over here, we're already 2 out of 3, and we're already by the footstep of the third. So now that we have Israel, Baruch Hashem, and we're getting terrorized very, very heavily by Islam, we have to try to figure out what does this mean for us. Chazal teach us a very important principle when it comes to these things, that with the nation, when we go to exile, the nation that's prosecuting us, you can learn about why we are getting prosecuted from the nation. So they have very similar character traits, which means if we look at them, we can see what we need to work on. So the Rabbi Dessler brings it down also. In Michtav Me'Eliyahu, he brings down, it says it parallels the type of transgressions to which the Jews had fallen prey to. So with the Jews, whichever they are subjugated by, whichever particular nation, means a lot to us. So by us today, our focus is to learn about Ishmael, to learn about Islam, to learn about not just as a history class and sort of look how what they're doing to us, but rather what we could learn from this. So there is a Gemara in the Sotah that says there's a few things that's going to happen at the end of the days, and we started speaking about it previously about certain things. So they each correspond to, and we'll go maybe for a few of them. We don't have time to go through all of them. But for example, we said that the lies are going to increase. It's going to be a time where lies are going to be rampant, and this is comparable to when we are when we're lying to ourselves or that. What's going to happen? Ishmael is going to lie to us. And we're going to soon see how much nothing that comes out of their mouth is truth. Like everything is complete falsehood. And so when we're not true to ourselves, they are not going to be true to us. Also, we spoke about that the inflation persists, that will rise. The value of money will decrease. There won't be any value. What does that mean? That when we're emphasizing too much on the materialistic world, that's going to reduce. God is going to reduce it to show you that it's not worth anything at the end of the day. So the Reb Chaim Vital, which was the main disciple of the Arizal, the biggest mukubal in the past, he lived about 500 years ago. So he goes from the Pasuk in Tehillim, in chapter 124, verse 2. It says, Lulei Hashem shahaya lanu bekum aleinu adam. It says, that the terminology that's used over here is the word Adam. And he explains over here that who's this referring to? This is referring to Ishmael. That in the end of days, there's going to be somebody who's going to be called Adam. And we know, where do we know that Ishmael in the Pasukim, it says, if you look in Bereshit, in Genesis, chapter 16, verse 12, it says about Ishmael, V'hu yeh Pere Adam yado bakol v'yad b'kol bo. His name is going to be Pere Adam. We're soon going to explain what this means. But his hands is going to be in everything, and everyone's going to be in him. And now I'm going to give you 6 explanations on this Pasuk, and it's going to just clarify what the rabbis, 1,000 years ago and plus more, that gave an explanation of what this means, and we can see how each and every single one of them goes and it's completely applicable to Ishmael. So again, Ishmael is called a Pere Adam, and we're going to explain what that means. If you translate it, it means like a wild donkey of a man, right? That's literally the translation of it, Pere Adam. So the first explanation, which is Onkelos, he brings down and he says that it's that this nation, Ishmael, will rebel against all mankind. Check. That they accomplished. Number 2 is that this is something very interesting, that we will need him and they will need us. Everybody will need him and he will need everybody else. So to understand it in the terminology for nowadays is that they're very backwards in technology. But at the same time, they sit on a lot of oil. So they need us. They need the Western world for technology, and that the Western world needs them for the oil. So this is the way this is how the pasuk says that yad bakol v'yad kol bo, that he is going to need the Western world, and the Western world is going to need him. The third interpretation is the Ibn Ezra. He says that Yishmael will be unrestrained among people. I don't have to even explain this. Just open up any paper anywhere in Europe. Just pick a country. Open up a page, and see what goes on about these people, what they're doing to Europe. Number 4, the Ramban. He says that he's going to wreak havoc on everybody. And this is something very interesting. His descendants will wage war against all the nations. Who could say, you look about this, 1,000 years ago. Who could say, like the insight that these rabbis had on explaining the Torah and how exactly it came into being. like verbatim. Like literally, they're at war with everybody, and we're soon going to see just how much. There's also the word Pere or Pere. It's really pronounced Pere Adam. Pere is like something like it's similar to Pera, which is to uncover, which means they are an entity that just wants to be free. They don't want to be ruled by anybody. They want to be completely free. And this Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch explains it also. He says that they're going to subjugate, any subjugation against them, they're going to shake it off. And we see this in Europe. In Europe, so they took in a lot of refugees. There are certain places in Europe where the police don't even walk in. They just not for us. Like they call in for a homicide, I'll be like, yeah, sure, we'll be there. They'll circle around the town.
Can I say that we've been to several countries in Europe, and especially London, it's really scary.
It is.
We were like, oh,
we never said we were Jews.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, totally.
It is. It's a you go over there, and that's London. England is not so bad. Go to France. See what goes on in France. So that place is very, very, dangerous. And that's why there's a lot of people that are moving out of there. That's why I said, originally I said in 2015 it came that Israel was the most dangerous place for a Jew to live. Now France is very, very dangerous, and Jews are like moving in flock loads to Israel, or they're moving over here, whatever it is. They're going out. That was number 6. That they're not going to be able to be subjugated. They cannot be ruled by anybody. Nobody can tell them what to do. They have to do whatever they want. Number 6 is that Rashi explains that Ishmael will be a thief. And it's very interesting because in the generation of the flood, it says that one of the reasons that it was sealed for that is because it was v'timala haaretz chamas. The land was filled with kimala haaretz chamas. The land was filled with chamas. Chamas means that it was, you shouldn't pour like that. Pour the other way. That's mourning. Yeah. So the land was filled with thievery, and he says in the end, it's very interesting because what is the terminology that they use for stealing, for thief is Hamas. Literally, what they called Hamas in Gaza, the ones who run that, they call it literally the stealing a thief.
Like that?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, they named themselves. Yeah. It's not that other people put their name in it. So we see here something very underlining about Ishmael. They are a Pere Adam. They are a people that don't get along with other people. They want to fight everybody. They want to go and they don't want to be ruled by anybody. And they want to do their own thing all the time. No one can tell them what to do. And they want to enforce their ideologies on everybody else. So now let's look a little bit around the world and just see how it works. So you have a bunch of different religions. Nowadays, almost every religion can live peacefully with another religion. So let's say, for example, Christians and Buddhism. They're fine. They could live together, not a problem. Christians and Judaism. Nowadays is fine. Back then it wasn't. But nowadays, they live at peace. Christianity and Confucianism, no problem. Christian and Taoism, no problem. Atheism, Shintoism, any of the religions, you go back and forth with mix and match anybody, there's not much of a problem. They live with peace, no problem. You serve your God, you serve their God, there's no issues. I'm talking about it around the world. Now let's look at Islam. Islam and Christians. No, not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen unless you want to have your head on a platter. You're not going to be a Christian in an Islamic place. Islam and Buddhism, also very bad idea. Islam and Judaism, very bad idea. Islam and Confucianism, also, you're not following Islam, not good. Islam and atheism, very bad. Islam and the Shintos, also very bad. Everywhere that they live with, they cannot live with anybody. So then fine, let's settle with Islam. No. The worst. Just look at that. They're killing everybody. They're killing everybody. You're not following. There's a share. There's all different types of different sects of it. So Islam, not only can they not live with anybody else, they cannot even live amongst themselves. And this is very interesting. I saw this, a video of this once that Islam is the Islamic people, the Ishmaelim, the Arabs. They're very unhappy in certain areas. Syria, they're very unhappy over there. Look at what's going on over there. You look at Morocco. You look at all these different places that are. I don't know if Morocco is a good example, but these places that are not westernized, these places that are by a totalitarian government, a place that is a monarchy, they're very unhappy there, and they run away. And where do they go? They go to places like Germany, France, where they are happier. They get benefits, they get food stamps, they get whatever it is that they're able to achieve. So they're happy over there. But something very interesting is that wherever they're going to be happy, in Germany and France, what do they want to do? They want to make it like where they're not happy. They're not happy back in whatever there was in Libya. So now they're going to go to Germany, but they're going to make it like it was in Syria. But you just weren't happy there. Why are you going to make the same type of government? They love blood. They love blood. So, but here we see over here, and someone once sent me this video. They did a very nice presentation of this video and how everything worked. It was just beautiful, but it made perfect sense. So. we should not be fooled. Okay, so Ishmaelim is a very, very, they have a very bad trait, the Pere Adam. But you think, okay, so they have a bad trait, they could overcome it. It's just a temporary, just a thing that they could. The Torah says no. So generally, in proper grammatical Hebrew vernacular. There's a lot of big words there. Very happy with that. Okay, so you should first put the noun, which is the Adam. Afterwards, you should follow it by the adjective, which is the Pere. So, but the Torah reversed it. Instead of saying Adam, that is a Pere, it says it's a Pere Adam. So they put the adjective before the noun, which means is.
Adjective becomes the noun?
So it emphasizes even more, and it's not. Yeah, it doesn't make sense if you think about it. So it's backwards. Now, why is it that it's backwards? So not, if someone would say, okay, this guy, he has an anger personality, that's very bad. But if this guy, if I tell you, he is anger, that's his essence, then it's like, that's not a personality trait anymore, that's who he is. Now again, anger is a character trait, it's a bad trait, but it's a bad thing to as an explanation. But the way the Torah says it, he is a Pere Adam, which means is, you don't think that he's not Adam who has a, character trait of a Pere. No. He is first a Pere. He is first somebody who is a wild person of a man, and then he's a man. So don't think that he's going to change. This is going to be to the end of times. And the Torah is eternal. The Torah doesn't say. The Torah was, brought to us 3,300 years ago, and it's still exactly applicable 100% today, and everything is on the dot, on the money. So the Chafetz Chaim says also, he says that Ishmael will forever remain a Pere Adam. And he says even if all the cultural nations, they'll be like, come to our colleges, we're going to give you good degrees, and we're going to give you can't change them. Just look at what happened recently in, when they ISIS recruited, you see people with advanced degrees in biology and law and doctorate, they go and they fight, for ISIS. And you think it doesn't make sense because you cannot, it's like, I don't want to give this it's not a great example, but you cannot train a cat to not chase mice. It'll be like it's a best friend, but eventually it's going to get hungry or sometime it's going to eat the mouse. You cannot, they are in essence a Pere Adam. So, on the Chafetz.
How are normal people, fine, I guess they're not normal, but how are people going to follow them if they're not
Pere Adam is your answer.
But they're not.
Try, you can't explain. Certain people, that they're not that? They get, you mean like, let's say the people that sympathize with the Palestinian?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to speak about that. Yeah. All those people that, we'll get to that. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but we'll get to that. Okay, so now, the Chafetz Chaim goes and he says, who knows what this Pere Adam is liable to do to Am Yisrael in the end of days? That's how bad it's going to be. So we see over here that it's a people that they break off international agreements, which we're soon going to go and explain in depth. They are willing to declare their children go for the holy goal of sacrificing yourself. They are so the Torah, when he saw Torah had long range, long vision. And they saw in the future, this is never going to change. This is how it's going to be. Now, there's something very interesting. If you look at the name Ishmael, it's the only name of all the nations of the world that have a God's name in it. El. It's a God's name in there. Yisrael and Yishmael, only two. So something very interesting. What is it that Ishmael got that the schut, the merit to have that on it? So, yeah.
Because what's his name? Esau respected his.
No, it's not Esau. We're talking about Ishmael.
Because he prayed.
We're talking about Ishmael. So. Well, that's now. This is before even. You're talking about Islam. Ishmael is before.
He got Ishmael because he was praying so much for his mother.
Oh no. That was they named. Oh, we'll get to that. I'll explain that. So yeah. So now the where was I? So the Islam, which is now Ishmael, is one of the few nations in the entire world. The few religions in the entire world that practice monotheism. They're crazy and they do crazy stuff. And their faith is very perverted, as soon as we're going to see, but they still practice monotheism. They still believe in one God. So in some aspect, they are, spreading the name of one God throughout the entire world. So for that alone is already enough that they have God's name within their name. But the problem is, so you think about it, be like, so if you are practicing monotheism, you're worshiping the right God. And according to the common, nowadays we don't consider Islam to be an avodah zarah, as opposed to Christianity is. So Islam, for example, we spoke about in the Christian class. Let me rephrase that. We spoke about when we spoke about the Christians. Is that you're not allowed to go to their church. You're not allowed to. It's forbidden. So going to a place of avodah zarah. However, let's say you want to go to a mosque. Wouldn't recommend it. I definitely would not recommend it, but it's not considered avodah zarah in that aspect as it is a church. So you think about it. They are practicing Monotheism. They have the name of God in them. How are they still doing so much, crazy stuff in the entire world? And the answer is that their faith is, like we said before, it's perverted. It's not the right faith. What is their faith is tainted by their Pere Adam quality. So they're Pere Adam, but unfortunately that overrides everything that they have as faith. So, and you look at this, the way that they do it is they do anything that they want, and then they claim that's God's will. And we'll explain it. We'll explain that, momentarily. When Abraham, when he had 3 guests that they were Arabs and they had dust on their feet, and what he said, he says, "Wash off your feet," right? So, because who knows, maybe that they're avodah zarah and they pray to the dust of their feet. So, they bow to the dust of their feet. So the question is be like, I understand idol worship. Who bows to the dust of their feet? Like, how is that? What is the Torah saying when it means that? Explains on Moshe Shapiro. And he goes and he says that, how the Ishmaelim, how they work. Wherever they walk, this is what God told them to do. They decide to do suicide, God told them to do that. They decide to murder, little kids, God told them to do that. Whatever, how they pervert it so much is that it's not that, they are they're following God's will. Whatever they do is God's will. And they make God's will theirs. You understand what I'm saying? You understand how they flipped it. So, and this is very unfortunate. So what they're doing is that they think they're great people, and they think they're going straight to heaven, and they think they're going to be going to to the top level of paradise for the things that they do. They are basically I don't know confusing themselves. They're I mean, if you think about it, also it's not only them. Nowadays, it's very unfortunate, and I speak to people like that. People think that they're a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good Jew. This is the verbatim of what people tell me. I'm a good Jew. I just I don't keep kosher, but I'm a good Jew. I'm a good Jew. I don't keep Shabbat, but I'm a good Jew. Steal every once in a while, but otherwise, I'm a good Jew. I'm like, who gave you terminology? How do you, do you speak the English? What do you mean? You're good. It's like, I said, I don't even understand. It's like going to court. Somebody got busted for robbing a bank. Yeah, let's make a nice juicy story. They got stealing from robbing a bank, right? And they go in, and the judge says, being that it's a very nice judge, he says, listen, I'm going to let you off with a warning. Whatever. He's not following the laws. But he says, I'm going to let you off with a warning. So he says, but on the condition that you don't rob any more banks. So the guy is, he's standing over there, goes and says, fine, I'm not going to rob any more banks. I can't promise anything about convenience stores, though. I'd be like, I'll be a good citizen. No more banks. But I can't promise anything. I'm like, how do you, that's not a good citizen. You have to follow all the rules. You want to be a good Jew? It equals very, very easily. Follow the rules of the Torah, and you'll be a good Jew. Don't make up. And this is exactly like Islam. Islam, what is Islam? They pretend to be whatever they want to be, and they fit it into their religion. So unfortunately, this is many people nowadays. They do whatever they want, and they fit in. You know how many sins they do for the sake of shalom bayit, and peace of the home. I don't have to keep Shabbat. It's going to make fights in the home. I don't know which Shulchan Aruch you're reading, but that's not like that. Or they say, how many people go in the name of giving charity? It's like, listen, I'm going to go gambling. 50%, Rabbi. 50% of all my winnings is going to go straight to charity. So first of all, why are you so confident that you're going to win? And second of all, that's despicable money. It's a money that's not blessed. So and then they have people that what?
Let's say I want money gambling. Can I give it?
You could give it to tzedakah, and you should, but you should not be going gambling. Gambling is forbidden. So the that's okay. Yeah, I'm talking about, let's say you go, in particular, let's say you're sitting around with a bunch of friends and you're playing poker, 100% forbidden. Then there's different. Oh wow, I didn't know you guys. All right, so then we'll have to explain this. So the no, it's a big problem because there's a little bit. You have to speak to a local Orthodox rabbi, but as a general rule, gambling is stay away from it. You have a particular circumstance of whatever it is, then speak to your local Orthodox rabbi. Going to play lotto, going to play like the Mega Millions of Powerball, that's okay. That's not a problem. And
Is that okay? And then gambling.
I'll tell you what the problem with gambling. The problem with gambling is that when you're sitting with a bunch of friends and you're playing poker, so everybody brings in X amount of money, they put it into the pot, however it goes. I'm not familiar with the rules, but you bring in money, and then one person usually wins, or a few people win, but. Yeah. So but the problem is that when you're going to play poker, you're not thinking you're thinking that you're going to win. And hence the guy before, give 50% of all my winnings to charity. He goes. People don't go to normal people do not go gamble and be like, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to lose like $1,000 tonight, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be great. Nobody does that. You go, I'm going to go to that. I'm going to come back with 10 grand. You watch me. I'm going to make 10 times the money. Everyone goes in thinking they're going to win. Now, it's a very big problem when you have a bunch of people putting in money together, everyone thinking that they're going to win, and then only one person wins. So everybody else is not really willingly giving over the money because they really wanted it. So it's like a avak of geneva. It's a dust of like stealing a little bit because you're taking money from somebody that doesn't really want to give it to you. And
But they agree to it.
of course they agreed to it because they thought they were going to win.
It doesn't matter. They still agree to it.
All right, but they still thought that they were going to win.
Right,
It's-
they agree to it
So
really.
sometimes you don't even want to give money to charity, but you're like, it's for the best or whatever.
It's not the same.
No, that's you're not. The charity's not stealing. You don't want to waste money on food, but you have to eat. Be like, it's like, so you're not going to. All right, that hit home. Okay, good. All right, so let's move on. But maybe one time we'll have to make a whole class on gambling. So okay. By the way, this also goes in how people pretend to be okay in let's say in aspects of modesty. People say, you know what, I'm fine. It's it's very hot in the summer. Afterwards, that's when I'll start. In the winter, it's easy to be modest. And that's when I'll start. It doesn't work, and they think I'm a good person because there's one thing that you should do is do not fool yourselves. You want to do a certain sin. I wish you that you wouldn't. But if you do, there's one thing that if you fool yourself, then you're never going to change. But you have to be honest with yourself. Don't be like the Ishmaelim who think that they fool themselves. That's the word I was looking for before. They fool themselves. They think that everything is right. And they're never going to change because they think that they're right. Don't think if you're doing something wrong, don't convince yourself that it's right. Okay, so this is why that the Yisrael and Ishmael both have God's name. Now we could split hairs a little bit. Yisrael is, if you split, it's Yashar Kel, which means is they go in the path of God. Yashar means straight to God, which means is that we follow God's Torah and the way that God does it. Yishmael means like God will hear. God will hear. What's God going to hear? God's going to hear what I want to say. And that's what's going to that's what's going to be the God's will. So they pervert it and they will put it, because the proof is, but you could ask this also a question. If you look at the Pasuk in Bereshit, in Genesis chapter 16 verse 11, it said the Malach came to her, the angel came to her, and he said that he said that the Ishmael was one of the people that were named before he was born. The angel told her what to name him. It says, the angel goes over to Hagar and it says, V'karat shmo Yishmael ki shama'a Hashem el anech, that you're going to call him Yishmael because God heard your cries. God heard your pain and your suffering, your affliction. So we see over here that his name was really not because Yishmael that God will hear, but rather because God heard from Hagar. So you could ask a question on what I just said. Be like, oh, no, it's already written before why God's name was written, why Ishmael's name was written like that. So the answer is that if it would have been that just on the aspect of God heard Hagar's cries, then it should have been Shama Kel. Like in the past, God heard you. Yishma is the verb in the future. What does that mean that God will hear you? So saying that not only that God heard you before, but this is the essence of the person, that he's always going to think that God's going to hear him. Whatever he says, that's law. And that's why his name is Yishmael. It tells you a lot about him. Explains the Zohar. The Zohar goes like this, and he says, no exile will be as oppressive to the Jewish people as the Ishmaelite exile, which is going to be the worst exile. And Rav Chaim Vital goes on this and says, in the future, Ishmael will cause extreme and bizarre grief, the likes of which we have never seen before. And we can go even more. Balak, the king of Moab, he went and he hired Bilam to curse the Jewish people. And Bilam tried to curse the Jewish people, but he ended up giving them a blessing. But and he ended up prophesying. Bilam was a non-Jewish prophet for the non-Jewish nations. So he prophesied about the end of days in our times. That's what he prophesied. And he says, and I'll read it for you in English. He says, alas. Alas is like, the translation is oi. Oi is like, oh man, oh man. He's like, who can survive when God puts this on him? When God's put this in him. Says Rabbi Elazar ben Horkonos. We're going to quote a lot of Rabbi Elazar ben Horkonos. Rabbi Elazar ben Horkonos was the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva. Remember we spoke about the whole, so this was his rabbi. He's talking about someone who lived in the year about from the year 40-ish to about 116 Common Era. And I'm just rough estimating. I don't have the exact date, so don't quote me on it. But in that time frame. So he says that who is Bilam talking about? He is talking about Ishmael. He's talking about the Ishmaelite exile. And this is saying, he says that it's going to be so bad that about no other exile did they use the term oi. Oi, only regarding to Ishmael.
And we're considered in exile now?
Yeah.
In a while though,
Yeah. So and you could see that, how this exile is really much worse than all of our other exiles. In all of our other exiles, there was no nation, no person who wanted to kill himself to kill other people. It never existed. There was no such thing as suicide bombers for the sake of the Roman, Christian, government. There was the Crusades, which murdered thousands upon, probably hundreds of thousands upon Jews. I'd probably even say millions. But nothing like if you would ask them, be like, okay, you could kill a Jew, but you have to die. They're like, no, thank you. Yeah, I hate the Jew with the bottom of my heart, but I'm not going to die for it. Ishmael, even if it's a possibility, they're going to be like, no problem, I'll do it. So and if you think about it, the entire world can be helpless with one suicide bomber. You look at people that build bombs in their basement and cause so much we have so much technology. We have so much advancement in the infrastructure of security and like crazy stuff. Yet you have one guy who goes online, reads up on how to make a bomb, and then he could go and blow himself up and kill who knows how many people, and we still cannot protect against that. It's not, we're trying, but we're living in a place that we feel absolutely no protection. And you look at you think back before September 11th, 2001, you thought America, just like the Titanic, impenetrable, the strong nation, and then what happens? A few people, went and they brought America down to its knees. It brought it down to its knees by hijacking some planes. With what did they have? Some box cutters? This is what they dealt with, and they, whatever, I don't know, they had bombs, whatever else that they had over there, but it's ridiculous on how you have... Exactly. They were willing to die for their cause, and they were willing to, and this is the place that we are. We had never, ever been in this predicament before in the history, in all of our exiles. So you look at the statistical, numbers of how many Christians, how many Muslims, these things are all like estimated. So Christianity right now is still as the #1 religion in the world, right? It's got the top 10 ranks. It's #1. Islam is #2, and it's coming up very close. So you have about Christianity, and again, this is rough estimates, about 2.1 billion Christians in the world. Islam. So you look at, depending where you look, anywhere between 1.3 to 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. So, but from all the places that I've done my research, it's been more 1.8 billion than 1.3. So. And this is as of 2015 when I was doing the research that came up. So as of 2015, there's about 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. It's the world's second largest religion in the world. But from this statistics that they presented, it says Islam is expected to exceed the number of Christians by the end of the century. They're going to overtake it. They are the fastest growing religion worldwide. So you think about it, be like, okay, this is not a passing phase. This is just going to get worse. And you look, so CNN wrote down, I know CNN, fake news, we all know it's not, whatever. But at the statistics that they presented was not their statistics, so you could say it was from the CDC, the Centers for the Disease Control and Prevention. So they brought down that since 1909 is when the U.S. government started to keep track of the fertility rate, and we'll explain what that means in a minute. And in 2016, it kept on declining. Ever since the post-World War II baby boom, it kept on declining, and when 2016, when this article came out, it was at the lowest point, the fertility rate. So just to explain what that means. In order for a culture to maintain itself, it has to have, for more than 25 years, it has to have a fertility rate of at least 2.11 kids per family. And I'll explain what that means. So you have a husband and a wife, right? So there's 2 humans in the world. Now, if they want to make sure, at least to maintain the same population, they at least need to have 2 kids. So the population is equal. Now, if they have 3 kids, that means the population is on a grow. If they have 1 kid, then the population is on a decline. So when you hear the terminology of 2.1, 1.3, these are, so anything, in order just to stabilize itself, not even to grow, it has to be at least 2.11. This is according to the statistics over there. I don't know where the 1 came in, but from common sense, you'd see at least 2. So now let's look at the fertility rate throughout the entire region in Europe, in America, and the Islamic world. So the fertility rate, this is as of the study was done in 2007. France has a fertility rate of 1.8. England has a fertility rate of 1.6. Greece, 1.3. Italy, 1.2. Spain, 1.1. Canada, 1.6. America is also 1.6. It's interesting because the Latino population has 2.11. So they're good. But you look at it, everything I just told you was under 2. The Islam was anywhere between 4.1 to 7.7. This is a ridiculous amount, and I'm being conservative because they put in here 8.1, And I did some more research, and I found it to be more 4.1 and to 7.7. So again, because you have more modern Islam, so those are more like the 2.9. But they're still way more advanced. And you look at it, in 1970s, there was a total of 100,000 Muslims in the United States. As of 2008, there was 9 million Muslims. From 100,000, you know what the type of growth that is? According to the news articles of Russia Today, the Muslim minorities make up approximately 15% of the total population in Russia. 15%. So the chart that I showed you before that made Russia white, they're going to turn red very soon. Belgium. Listen to this. Belgium, 25% of the population is Muslim. The biggest kicker, 50% of all newborns are all Muslim. It's only a matter of time over here. Germany. Let me tell you something that Germany itself brought out with its own statistics. The fall of the German population can no longer be stopped. It is a downward spiral that is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state by the year 2050. This was done by the Germany Federal Statistics Office. By 2050, they are, it's going to be and they think, okay, come on. Let's bring in more Muslim refugees. Go, Chazakabo, enjoy. Enjoy them. Take them. The European Union. The European Union is a combination of 31 countries. Their fertility rate, combined fertility rate, is 1.38. So as per this research, it is impossible to reverse what has already come into play, which means in a few years, Europe will cease to exist as we know it. And America is only going to be who knows how long to the... And you look at Gaddafi, right? What Gaddafi said. I want to quote you something that Gaddafi says, if I may. Gaddafi, the ruler of Libya, do some research on it. He's a fun character. Now that he's dead, it's fun. No. Islamic. So, Muammar Muhammad Gaddafi, right? So he says like this. He says, there are signs that Allah will grant victory to Islam in Europe without swords, without guns, and without our conquest. We don't need terrorists. We don't need homicide bombers. The 50+ million Muslims in Europe will turn into a Muslim continent within a few decades. He says all we need is faith and have them in birthright. What? And even more so. So you look at where the world is going. You know, the Torah says that Islam will rule the world by the end of the days, and we see it's happening. They don't need anything else. They just keep on popping babies. The place is going to be flooded. Because first of all, the Islam, let's look at Christians. Christians are not committed to their faith as Muslims. You ask a Christian, what does it say in your Bible? They'll be like, well, my Bible says if I believe in Jesus, then I'm going straight to... That's as far as they know, the majority of them. You go to some Islamic people, it says, what does it say in your Quran? It says, which verse you want me to quote for you? So they know a lot more. They're much more, I don't want to say religious, but they are. They're more devoted to the religion than that. So, and they have lots of kids. They also have lots of wives. And you go to Islamic countries, the wife will be like, okay, I don't want to have any more kids. So he'll show you the back of his hand, and then you'll have as much kids as he decides. And if not, he'll punish you. And you look, and I've seen this, and I cannot make this up. And I saw this, and it was not even in a YouTube clip. It was on an Islamic website. And it was an imam, I don't know what it is, like a rabbi of so he goes, and he is like a priest, yeah, that's a better example. He is teaching the Muslims how to beat their wives. He'd be like, he says, if they don't listen to you, says first you ignore her. You ignore her for a few days. If she doesn't, you take a stick, not a big stick, a small stick. You hit her until she's going to listen to you. And he's giving them instructions, and you see people listening there, like taking notes. They'll be like, a stick of 2 inches, okay, fine. Hit her how hard? And this is how they teach. This is what they preach. They preach not only to hate and everybody else. They beat their own wives. They beat their own, and that's why it's so unfortunate. You look at Israel, and it's very unfortunate that there are organizations, because nowadays, they have all the Jewish girls, and they're all like, oh, I fell in love with Muhammad, and they're going to be like, he's different than anybody else, and they unfortunately, they get trapped into that, and then what happens? They get beaten, and then they reach out to these organizations, and these organizations are usually a lot of ex-army soldiers that they do these missions and extract them from these Muslim villages. But why do they come running? Not because their love is so great and the marriage is amazing, right? And this Ali is much different than anybody else. No, it's not. They're just as bad, every single one of them. And unfortunately, they don't realize they get sucked into it. And they brought up in a place that freedom of love. Love whoever you want. It's like, and then they get stuck, and then they have to come to these organizations who help them try to extract them and their kids. So very unfortunate. So we see over here that the fact that you can't hold these people back. They're growing. They are going to grow, and they are going to conquer. They're going to go all over the world, and we see it. We see Europe is done. Europe is done. It was done already a long time ago, but we see that there's not much that can be stopped, and we see this is exactly what the Torah says. The Gemara in Baba Batra. I want to quote you a few Gemarot. We have a few more minutes, and we'll finish off that. We're going to have to. Thank you. I'm going to have to. I don't know if I could do it all in one class. Okay, we'll see. The Gemara Baba Batra, thank you. The Gemara Baba Batra 73b says like this. Says Rabbi Baba Chana said, he says, I want to quote for you this Gemara, and I'll read it to you in English. I saw a frog as big as the city. Along came a tanin, which is like a scorpion or a crocodile, and swallowed it. Along came a female crow and swallowed it. The Maharsha explains, and he says this is referring to the last exile in Daniel's vision, which we're not going to get to speak today, but maybe one day we'll speak about that. The frog is an allusion to Greece. And then comes Rome, which swallows the frog, which is the tanin, like the scorpion, or the crocodile. It swallows the Greece, which means they come into power. And finally, who swallows the tanin is a female crow. And what is a crow? Crow is referred to Ishmael. Now, I want to focus on the crow. Why crow? Crow are renowned for their cruelty to. They don't even. They're even cruel to their own kind. They don't. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think they don't even look. Yeah, they don't look at their young. They don't look after their young. They don't go. They just like go fend for yourself. They don't care about it. This is exactly what is by Ishmael. Ishmael doesn't care about their young ones. Says go blow yourself up. The IDF takes out videos every so often in regards to what Hamas and all those things, and they showed the education for kindergartens in the Hamas, and I saw it literally today. It's unbelievable. You see, when you're, I get all these things sent to me from random people, and it comes to me like mamash a day that I'm preparing a class. It's like, so, and I was shocked. You see kindergarteners with like fake guns, and they are, they're like training. And then they have this other kindergarten which has fake peot, fake tzitzit, like pretending to be a Jew. And the other little kindergarten with guns comes and like kicks the other one down on the floor and points the gun at him. This is what they're training the little kids over here. So he says, what are they training them? They're training them already to go be a suicide bomber. Just like a crow. I don't care about the kids. They also, they're willing to have the kids die for the sake of that. So there's another Gemara also in Baba Batra, same page, 73b. It goes like this. Rabbi Balachan also says like this. He says, once we were traveling in a boat, and we saw a great fish, and on it was earth, so we thought it was dry land. So we climbed on it, and we baked, we cooked, we made a fire on it. But as the fire started warming up, it was really a fish. It was a very large fish, and it flipped over. And then Rabbi Barachana says, had we not been close to our boat, we would have drowned. So I want to give you an explanation from somebody by the name of Rabbi Yaakov Milisa. I have to first explain who this Rabbi Yaakov Milisa was, because you see how his explanation, to give you some, so first of all, very interesting, his name was Yaakov ben Yaakov Moshe. Usually you're not named after your father. So I did a little research. It turns out that his father died before he was born. So he was named after his father, Yaakov ben Yaakov Moshe. So he was also the great-grandson of Chacham Tzvi Ashkenazi, which everyone is not familiar, is also related to Rav Yaakov Emden. So he was a very, very big posek in his time. How big was he? So there was somebody by the name of Rav Shlomo Gansfried, who wrote something called the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So he took the Shulchan Aruch and he made it in a bridge version, very easy to read for the common popular. And I strongly recommend this. It's very easy to make this in English now. They even have a Sephardi version of it. They have a Sephardi and Ashkenazi version of it that you go in a bookstore, you buy Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and you literally could go and read all the halachot. It gives you a great abbreviation of all the halachot that you need. So he wrote it, and this is back in about the year 1800. He wrote an abridged version. But besides abridging it, he also included the current commentaries on the halachot. So updated on like certain things that that before basically made it more up to date with the more recent rabbis that the poskim. So he did it in a very similar way to the way that Rabbi Yosef Karo, who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, the way that Rabbi Yosef Karo did in the Shulchan Aruch, he took 3 rabbis and of their works, and which was Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi, the Rambam, and Rabbeinu Asher, and he took them and he sort of looked, knew all their laws and picked the majority on the laws. On that majority of the halachot, also you look at it, it's a Rambam in the Shulchan Aruch. But so the Rav Shlomo Gansfried, when he did the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, did it in the same method. He took the 3 things. So he took of the 3 things, one of them was this Rabbi Yaakov Milisa. This is one of them so he was such a big posek that he was one of them that he took for. The other two was Rav Shnev Zalman of Ladai, and which authored the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and Rab Avraham Danzig, which authored the Chai Adam. Again, for you guys who are not familiar with any of the poskim, it's probably, but just it's good information to know. So he was one of them that he took in to sort of compile his Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which means he was a very, very, very big posek. So now, listen to how he explains this Gemara. Amazing. So he says like this. He says that that this was a mystical vision that is in reference to before Mashiach comes. And he says that before the Mashiach comes, the Jews will rule over the other nations, and the Jews are compared to a big fish. And the Bnei Israel, the Jews, will think that they dried up, that everything is dried up, like the dry land on top of the fish. And all these nations, they lost hope. And therefore, Klal Yisrael will bake and cook, which means that they'll try to overpower them totally. But then they will heat up the area. This is going to heat up the area, and the fish will flip over, which means is that they will overcome. They somehow, the people that they subjugated will come and will fight back. And then it says, had we not, then the Gemara finishes off, had we not been close to our boat, we would have drowned. Which means is, and Rabbi Yaakov Melissa goes and explains it, had we not been close to the time of redemption, we would not have survived. So we look at that, that's how he explains it in the 1800s. Now we look at it nowadays, in the 6 Day War. The 6 Day War, Israel felt on top of the world. We beat so many, all the surrounding nations, we demolished it. It was so, if you ask anybody who lived in those time over there, if an Arab Palestinian was walking they were scared of the Jews. They were scared. They just ran away. There was such fear in the Arabs that they were scared. The Jews were on top. But all of a sudden, for some unexpected reason, they got their self-esteem back, the Arabs. And all of a sudden, it flipped around until the Intifada. When the Intifada came, and the Arabs started fighting back. So we see over here exactly what he said. We ruled over the area, and now all of a sudden, now we gave back land, and now we get, so it's going back to exactly the way that he brought it. He explained it in the messianic vision about Mashiach. There is something I want to share with you. Let's try to figure out over here. Should we stop over here? Maybe we should stop over here and continue next week, because it looks like we're going to have to split this into two about it, Islamic thing. It's
Just like 10 minutes.
You want to do a little bit more?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, Baruch Hashem, look, you just want to learn so much Torah. Okay. So, I'll go for a few more minutes, and then we'll continue this with B'ezrat Hashem next week also. So, there is Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer, which we spoke about before, the Rabbi Lezer ben Horkanus, which was a rabbi of Rabbi Akiva. He, if you want to look at it inside, because we're not going to go over everything, in chapter 30th in Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer, which is one of his books, they have it also in English, you could go pick it up in the store. In chapter 30 over there, it speaks about 15 things that Bnei Ishmael will do to the land in Israel in the end of days. And it's interesting, you go through it, it's like check. So we're not going to go through all of them, I'll go through some of them. He says, of the few, he says they will turn their cemeteries into pasture land and dumps. They'll turn the cemeteries, and we see that, to be honest, I saw it with my own eyes. You look at the Hala Zaytim, how the little kids, they jump from grave to grave, like they play on that. They literally turn into that. Then it says the lies will abound, which we spoke about. They will deceive the people, and we see this so true. The Ishmaelim, they're so, it's funny because sometimes they get caught because they fake the media. They put video cameras out and showing how, look what Israel did, and everybody's like, like in pain. Or I've seen, because sometimes they have video cameras rolling and it sometimes gets leaked out. So one time they had, what Israel did to them. They had a row of corpses around there, and the problem was that they should the video. Look how many people they killed. The Israeli government. Look what they did to us. And then you see in the corner there was a foot that was moving under the sheet. There was a foot that was moving. And then you also see how they have video of how there's bombs and things like that. But it's interesting that you only see a certain shot. And then there was another video that was capturing another shot. You see the Palestinians that were gathered. They were calling people stand over here. So this guy was running, and all of a sudden he gets close to the video camera. All of a sudden he's like, he makes himself like he's hurt. They show to the media look how bad, look what they're doing to us. They completely perverse it. And we caught them on this so many times. They don't change. They don't care. No, this happened. No. They completely stand by it. And look at the world. The entire world believes it. Be like, look what Israel's doing. Look what Israel's doing. And meanwhile, you have the same video out there and showing that they're just, they're fighting with themselves. They're making explosions. They're doing this, and they're putting up smoke over here. So, Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer said this already almost 2,000 years ago. He said that the lies will abound. They will be very deceptive. Then he goes and he says also the law will be distant from Israel, which means to explain that is that even the Jews, unfortunately, will be disregarding the Torah. We see over here a lot of Jews in Israel, they don't follow the Torah. So And then he says something very interesting. He says the paper and the quill will shrivel. So I saw this interpretation of it. What does that mean, the paper and the quill will shrivel? Which means is, and this is an interpretation of it, all agreements that Bnei Ishmael sign are not even worth the paper that is written on it. They say yes for peace, and they say yes for, don't even listen to them. It's not worth anything that they say. Then it says something also very, very interesting. They will build a building over the Heichal, over the Kodesh Kodashim, over the temple, the sanctuary. They're going to build a building. And you look, first of all, this was written by Pere de Rabbi Eliezer, which Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkonis. Let me just give you some timeline. Islam was created at about the year 610 Common Era. He came around 500 years before Islam was even into the thing. And by the way, they would build a building in the sanctuary. You know that's the mosque, the Mosque of Omar. I forgot what it's called, the Caliph. We'll speak about that probably next week. But you see over here that 500 years before they even build it, they said they're going to build a building over there. And look, they have the building over there since then. It's a Ruach HaKodesh, whatever. A lot of these things are derived from Psukim. You have everything's in the Torah. Everything is in the Torah. You just have to know to be on the spiritual level to be able to look at it and see it. So everything until the end of days, everything's in the Torah. So he was a tzaddik. It's the top of the top. So and then he goes and he says they will build ruined cities in the mountains. Explanation of that is Bnei Ishmael, they will settle in many eras in Eretz Yisrael. They're going to build up these places. There's also something very interesting. This is hard to understand, that they will measure the land with ropes. So an interpretation that I heard is that they will claim sections of Israel to be theirs as well. So we see over here that everything that the Chachamim said about Ishmael, not only came into, it came in like to the T. It was so much on the money that it's scary. So we have to worry about not Ishmaelim and not what they're going to do. That we don't have to worry about that. We have to worry about what God does. I saw, I was reading a article today that somebody came over to Reb Steinman. Rabbi Steinman is, the Gadol Ador in Eretz Yisrael, over 100 years old. And one guy came over to me and says, Donald Trump is the numerical value of Mashiach. He says, what does that mean, that Donald Trump is Mashiach? So Rabbi Steinman, you know what he answered him? He says, don't worry about what Donald Trump has to do. He says, worry about what you have to do. He says, stop worrying about them. You're going to bring the Mashiach. He says, you want to know how you're going to bring the Mashiach? You have to go according to the Torah. When we're learning about Ishmael, we're not here to bash Ishmael. That's not my intent. It's my intent to bring him down. My intent is, what can we learn to perfect ourselves? And we have to look at, just how we started off, with how Chazal tell us that when we're subjugated into a land, we're subjugated for a reason, for that particular exile. And we have to learn why, and we have to overcome it. So we see Islam is like, some crazy stuff that they do. Some really crazy, wacky stuff that they're doing. But we have to learn, but that must be that we're lacking in something over here. They fool themselves. Oh, do we fool ourselves? Oh, do we fool ourselves? I can speak a whole class just on how much we fool ourselves. People convince themselves that they are okay. And I'm not saying that you should think that you should never think of yourself as a bad person. Because if you think of yourself as a bad person, you will do bad. You shouldn't think of yourself as bad. But don't fool yourself to thinking that you don't have to grow. And there are many people who think, I'm okay where I am right now. I'm pretty happy. A person, if you want to grow, you have to achieve to growth. Right? The famous thing when we spoke about self-esteem. If you say that you will fail, guess what? You will fail. If you will say you will succeed, you will succeed. If you think you are good where you are right now spiritually, then you're not going to grow. This is where you're going to stay. And most likely when you stay, you start falling down. So what we have to do is we have to learn from this. Not to, how Ishmael fooled themselves. We cannot fool ourselves. We have to be true to ourselves. Even if we're not changing. Even if it's very hard for us to change. Which is very, there's some people who say, listen, I can't do it. I can't do it. Which is not fine, but fine. That at least don't fool yourself. Know that you're doing something wrong. What is that? Alcoholics Anonymous. The first step, I think it's Alcoholics Anonymous. The first step is realizing you have a problem. If you don't think that you're doing something wrong, if you're not going against the Torah, you're not going to change. So that's one major thing that we can learn from Islam. And we're soon going to see B'ezrat Hashem next week. We're going to speak about how we could also learn from Emunah from Islam. But where we're going to start off B'ezrat Hashem next week is about peace and how they absolutely means zilch, everything that they say about peace.